He was sitting at a long oak dining table in my mother's house, surrounded by the people I had loved my whole life. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter floated through the air. Everyone looked so comfortable, so sure of their place, everyone but me. When my mother stood and raised her glass, I thought maybe, just maybe, she was about to say something kind. Something that would remind me still belong to them. Instead, she smiled sweetly. Yandy with a casual wave of her hand. She said with the Sadi to shoot Sadi out of the wall. The words hit me like a slap across the face. My brother Ethan threw his head back, and he laughed. His wife Chloe beamed at him like they had just won a prize. My father looked down at his plate. Even my grandfather gave us a low nod of approval. Then they lifted their glasses, all of them, and they toasted to my exclusion. To my erasure as he sat surfroze, holding my glass unable to lift it. Barely able to breathe. I could feel the sting of tears in my eyes, but I blinked them back with everything I had. Just when I thought the humiliation was complete, the front door opened and walked our family lawyer. Mr. Hayes holding a thick folder in one hand. He didn't smile, he didn't even look at them. He came straight to me and he sighed. Actually, Sadi is the only one who's getting anything. The room went dead silent. I sat there, heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. While the world I thought I knew shattered right in front of me. It was one of those cool fall evenings that always made me nostalgic. The sky had already gone dark by the time I pulled up to my parents' house. Their estate looked exactly like it always did, perfectly polished, grand enough to impress the neighbors, cool enough to make you wonder if anyone actually left. Inside, I sat in my car for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to gather myself. I had not been home for months. Things had been tense between us for years. But tonight, there was a small part of me that wanted to believe this dinner was a sign things were getting better. Inside, the house smelled like roasted turkey and the warm bread. The same way it did every holiday when I was a kid. For a second it almost felt like old times. I let myself believe the lie that maybe I was walking into a family that missed me. I smoothed my dress first a smile, and I stepped inside. My mother, Linda Monroe, was standing at the entrance of the dining room. She looked immaculate as always. Her hair perfectly styled, her pearls gleaming against her black dress. She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, that barely brushed my skin. Her eyes scanned me quickly, the way someone might inspect a package for damage. Sadi, she sighed, her voice pleasant but empty. So glad you could make it. I nodded and he murmured something polite, even though my stomach was already tightening. My father, Walter Monroe, gave me a small, tired smile from his seat at the head of the table. He'd always been the quiet one. The man who followed my mother's lead without question. Next to him sat my older brother Asa, dressed in a sharp suit, even though it was just a family dinner. His wife Chloe perched beside him, all glossy hair and the bright lipstick. Her hand wrapped possessively around Asan's arm. At the far end of the table sat my grandfather George, a man who believed strength was measured by how lightly you could dismiss someone else's feelings. His stern gaze flagged over me once, before returning to his glass of bourbon. He took a seat at the only open chair right at the end. The place where I always seemed to end up. The outlier, the spare part. Dinner began the way it always did, with service-level conversations about business deals, vacation homes, and who was achieving what. Ethan bragged about a recent promotion. Chloe chimed in about the new yacht they were considering buying. My mother nodded approvingly at all of it, her face lighting up with pride every time Ethan spoke. When they turned their attention to me, it was polite but clipped. My mother asked how teaching was going in the same town. She might have asked about the weather. Before I could answer, Chloe interrupted with a story about an expensive private school she was considering for their kids. The implication was clear. My life was small, ordinary. Something to be politely acknowledged, and they then moved past. I smiled through it. He had gotten good at it over the years. Smiling through the backhanded compliments, the condescending nods, the invisible line. They always drew between themselves and me. I told myself it didn't matter. I was proud of my life, I was proud of the work I did. Even if it didn't come with yachts and the stock options. Still sitting there, I felt the familiar ache in my chest. I wanted to belong to them. I wanted to be enough for them. No matter how many times I told myself I didn't care. Some part of me always hoped that one day, they would look at me the way they looked at Asa. As the plates were cleared and the wine flowed freely, my mother rose from her chair. She tapped her glass lightly with a fork. And the room fell into a hush. She stood there smiling warmly at all of us. And decided she had an important announcement to make. He sat up a little straighter. For a split second he thought maybe this was it. Maybe she was going to tell me she was proud of me. Maybe all the distance, all the hurt was about to be repaired with a few kind words. My heart thudded in my chest. He glanced around the table. Even Ethan looked curious. My father stared down at his napkin. Andy, my grandfather, shifted in his seat. He held my breath. He wanted to believe this family still had a place for me. He wanted to believe that despite everything, love could still be. He had no more idea that within the next few minutes they would shatter whatever was left of my heart. Without even blinking, my mother stood tall at the head of the table, one hand resting lightly on the back of my father's chair. Her smile never wavered. It was the same smile she used at country clip luncheons and the charity galas, polite and polished, completely detached from anything real. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. She began, her voice calm and steady. This family means everything to us. Andy, Walter, and Randy have been doing some important planning for the future. Around the table, heads nodded approvingly. Chloe adjusted the diamond bracelet on her wrist, catching the light. Ethan leaned back in his chair, arms folded across his chest, looking satisfied, like he already knew whatever announcement was coming would land in his favor. I forced myself to stay still, even as my hands trembled slightly under the table. My mother continued, her voice eerily sweet. We've made some difficult decisions regarding the estate, decisions that reflect the values and the priorities of our family. She paused, taking a delicate sip from her wine glass. My stomach twisted in knots. We feel it's important to reward those who have continued to honor the Monroe legacy, those who have contributed to the family name, who have made us proud with that in mind. We've decided that Sadie will no longer be included in the will. For a moment the words did not make sense. They floated in the air like smoke, and he could not catch them. He blinked at her, at my father, at Ethan, and Chloe. Ethan let out a short, sharp laugh like he had been holding a kesatu. Chloe's smile widened into something triumphant. Finally Ethan muttered under his breath, "Loud enough for everyone to hear." My father said nothing. He simply reached for his wine glass with a trembling hand, and he drank deeply. My grandfather gave a gruff nod, as if to say it was about time someone corrected the family's mistake. Chloe lifted her glass. "Family," she sighed brightly. The others followed, their glasses raised high, toasting, celebrating right in front of me. I sat there with my glass still resting on the table. I could not move, I could barely breathe. The humiliation hit me harder than anything I had ever felt. It was not just the betrayal. It was the way they made it so public, so casual-like. Cutting me out was no more significant than rearranging the furniture. Chloe leaned across the table, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Oh, hard feelings, right, Sadie?" I opened my mouth to speak, but my throat was tight. I nodded, because I could not find any words that would not break me further. I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and demand how they could do this to me. How they could pretend like I had never been one of them, but instead seated, I stayed silent. Inside I felt something shatter. Something that had been fragile for a long time. I thought of all the years I had spent trying to make them proud. The nights I stayed late after work, tutoring kids who could barely read. The hours spent volunteering at shelters, instead of networking at fancy events. One of it had ever been enough to them success, manpower, and the money, and the reputation. I had chosen a different life, a smaller one in their eyes, and they felt that it was disposable. The conversations resumed around me, casual and light, as if it was no longer sir. They spoke about vacation plans, about business expansions, about things he would never be a part of. He sat at the edge of the table, and outside looking ke satu, pretending to be invisible so it would hurt less. What a pain for me anyway. As I stared down at my plate, pushing the food around without tasting a bite, I felt a shift deep inside. A tiny ember of anger, not the wild, destructive kind, the slow, steady kind that fuels survival. If they thought they could break me, they were wrong. I swallowed hard, wiped my palms on my napkin, and lifted my eye. He would not beg, he would not cry in front of them. If they wanted me gone from their world, he would leave it with my head held high. He thought the worst was over. He thought the rejection was complete. But fate was about to deliver a surprise none of them would see coming. The conversation buzzed around me like a swarm of bees. But he had none of any such instant silence. Feeling smaller by the second, but somewhere beneath the shock, something inside me hardened. I had spent most of my life chasing their approval, measuring myself against standards I never agreed with, trying to be someone they could respect. Tonight made it brutally clear, there was nothing I could do to change the way they saw me. Nothing I ever did would be enough for them. I placed my hands carefully in my lap. I had a slight tremor. I focused on my breathing, steady and deep the way I used to when I had to present lessons at a tough classroom. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. As the dinner dragged on, I tuned out the conversation about vacation homes and the corporate investments. The world was closing ranks, locking me out as if I had never been part of it. Fine. If they wanted to erase me, I would make sure I walked away with my dignity intact. I looked around the table one more time, seeing each face in the harsh, unforgiving light of truth. My mother with her perfect mask of grace and the cruelty. My father silent and the complicit. My brother gloating as if my pain was his victory. Chloe perched at his side, sipping her wine with delicate triumph. My grandfather, grizzled and unbazired by the damage he helped us. I deserved better than this. I would not beg for crumbs from people who had shown me so little care. I would not stay small to fit their idea of how we should be. I straightened in my chair, folding my napkin neatly and placing it on the table. I wanted to stand up and leave, to walk out into the night without a word. But something stopped me, a sliver of stubborn pride. Maybe a voice inside that side wait. A sharp knock echoed from the front door. Every head at the table turned for a moment. One moved. My mother frowned, clearly annoyed at the interruption. My father sat down his fork with a soft clink. The butler, a man who had been part of the household longer than he had been alive, shuffled out of the room to answer it. The conversation picked up again, awkward and strained, but it faltered. The moment Mr. Carson Hayes stepped into the dining room. Mr. Hayes was our family lawyer, a man who was always dressed in tailored suits, and he carried himself with the cool confidence of someone who knew too many secrets. Tonight he held a thick leather folder under one arm. His expression serious. My mother's smile tightened. "Carson, we weren't expecting you," she said, her voice slipping slightly. Mr. Hayes gave her a short nod. "Apologies for the surprise, Linda. He was asked to deliver something tonight." He turned and he looked directly at me. His gaze was steady, respectful. He gripped the edge of the table. Something was happening. He could feel it, heavy in the air, like the seconds before a thunderstorm breaks open. Mr. Hayes moved to stand beside my chair. He placed the folder on the table and flipped it open, revealing a stack of documents with official seals. "My office received instructions from Eleanor Monroe before her passing," he said. His voice was clear and strong. "She requested that her personal estate, separate from the family trust, be transferred to her sole beneficiary upon her death." He paused and the room held its breath. "That beneficiary," he said, turning slightly to face the others, "is Sadie Monroe." A stunned silence crashed over the table. It fell towards me like a wave. For a moment he could not process them. He stared at Mr. Hayes, then down at the papers, then back up at the faces around me. My mother's mouth opened and closed, a sound coming out. My father's hand first halfway to his glass. Ethan gawked at me, his smugness wiped clean off his face. Chloe blinked rapidly, as if trying to make sense of what she had just heard. My grandfather set his bourbon down with a heavy thud, his face darkening. He sat very still, my heart hammering against my ribs. Mr. Hayes continued, unaffected by the tension strangling the room. "Mrs. Monroe's private fortune, totaling just under $5 million, will be transferred to Sadie's name immediately. This were her wishes, fully legal and binding. I have all the documents prepared for signature tonight." I swallowed hard. I could feel 100 emotions glowing inside me: shock, disbelief, grief, a strange and terrible joy. For once someone had seen me. For once someone had believed I was worth something, without me having to earn it through perfect grades, polished appearances, or sacrificed dreams. I straightened my shoulders. I had spent my whole life thinking I was the one who needed their approval. Tonight proved the truth. They were the ones who had lost something precious. I looked around the table, locking eyes with each of them. In turn, they said nothing. I did not have to. The silence said it all. The silence stretched so long it started to ache. I sat still, feeling the weight of every star burning into my skin. My mother was the first to recover. She cleared her throat, her hand smoothing the tablecloth in a desperate, automatic mode. Sir must be some mistake. She sighed tightly, her voice brittle. Sadie was never meant to handle something of this magnitude. She would want the family to manage it. Mr. Hayes remained unmoved. Mrs. Monroe was very clear. She amended her personal estate planning herself. He witnessed it. Her wishes were to leave everything directly to Sadie, without any oversight. My father tried to speak, but gave up halfway through the sentence. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for his glass, again knocking it over. Red wine spilled across the white tablecloth, like a spreading one-eaten shade to his feet. His chair scraping loudly against the floor. His face was flushed a dangerous shade of red. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. Glaring at Mr. Hayes, Grandma would never treat you as odd. She loved all of us. She loved who treated her like family. Mr. Hayes sighed calmly. She made her decision based on actions, not bloodlines. Ethan turned his anger toward me next, eyes narrowing with a fury that almost made me flinch. "What did you do, Sadie? What kind of tricks did you pull?" I stood slowly, my head pounded. But my voice came out steady when he answered. "I loved her, I listened to her stories. I visited when nobody else bothered. That's all I ever did." Ethan looked like he wanted to say more, but Chloe grabbed his arm, whispering urgently into his ear. She had the look of someone who knew the battle was already lost. My grandfather sat silently, staring into his empty bourbon glass. He had built his whole life on pride and the loyalty to the family name. Watching him now small and defeated, I felt a pang of sadness that surprised me. My mother still sat rigid at the head of the table, her face locked in a cold, furious mask. Mr. Hayes pushed the folder toward me. "If you are ready, Sadie, you can sign the documents. I can file them tonight." I looked at the papers. Legal jargon filled the pages, but the meaning was clear. For once, he had been chosen not for what I could give, not for how well he fit into their perfect little world, but simply for who he was. I picked up the pen with a steady hand. I signed my name at the bottom of the page, each stroke of ink feeling heavier, more final than the last. When he finished, Mr. Hayes nodded approvingly and he began packing up his materials. The table stayed deadly quiet. He took a deep breath and he faced them all one last time. "You made it clear tonight what you think of me," he said, my voice calm and the handshake. "You toasted cutting me out without a second thought. You celebrated my absence as if it was some kind of prize, but the truth is it was never the problem. I just stopped pretending that your approval was worth chasing." He paused, letting the words settle. "I hope you enjoy everything you fought so hard to keep. I hope it brings you the happiness you never seemed able to find." My mother opened her mouth, but I held up a hand number. "You said enough already." Without waiting for a response, he turned and he walked out of the dining room. Each step felt lighter than the last. He did not look back. He stepped outside into the crisp night air. The stars stretched wide and brilliant overhead. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something like this. The door slammed shut behind me, muffling whatever chaos was erupting inside. I walked down the long driveway with my head held high. I had come here hoping to be accepted. I was living with something far better. I had my freedom, I had my future. And I finally understood that the love I had spent my life seeking was never going to come from people who only valued me when I fit the narrow mold. The life ahead of me was wide open, and this time it was mine to shape on my own terms. I smiled to myself as I reached my car. Not the broken kind of smile I used to wear, but a real one. Tonight was supposed to be my ending. It turned out to be my beginning. The engine of my car rumbled to life as I pulled out of the long driveway. I watched the house shrink in my rearview mirror, the grand windows glowing warmly against the night sky. Once that house had meant everything to me. It had been the symbol of belonging, of home, of family. Tonight it was nothing but a monument a life I no longer wanted to be part of. I drove without a destination for a while, letting the city lights blur around me. My hands shook for the first few miles. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline that still coursed through me. I replayed the dinner in my mind. Every cross smile, every empty toast, every look of shock when Mr. Hayes spoke. It was surreal. It felt like he had finally woken up from a long, painful dream. He pulled into a small, empty park and he killed the engine. The quiet was overwhelming. I sat there in the dark, breathing in the stillness, letting it settle deep inside me. For the first time in years, I was not carrying the heavy weight of their expectations. For the first time he was not trapped, trying to earn a place at a table, where life came with conditions. Tears finally came, but they were not the tears of sadness he had feared. They were the kind that come when you realize you have survived something you thought would destroy you. He let them fall, letting each one carry away the bitterness he refused to hold onto any longer. They had tried to erase me tonight. They had tried to toss me out of their lives without a second thought. Instead, they showed me a truth he had been too scared to face. Their love had always been conditional. Their acceptance had always been fragile, resting on my ability to meet their impossible standards. He spent so many years trying to change myself for them, shrinking and twisting into shapes they found more acceptable. Tonight he understood that no more amount of success, or amount of money or achievements would ever make me enough in their eyes. Indeed, it was not my failure. It was theirs. My grandmother had seen what they never could. She saw my worth without conditions. She left me a gift far greater than money. She left me freedom. She gave me permission to walk away, to build a life that was mine alone. What one that was peace together from scraps of their approval. He thought about the students he taught, the lives he touched every day, in ways no more stock portfolio or yet could ever measure. He thought about the late nights grading papers, the afternoons spent helping a kid who had been written off by everyone else finally believed he was smart. He thought about the life he had built for myself, simple but full of real meaning. Their world had rejected me, but he had found something they would never understand. Purpose, kindness, real success. He wiped my face and he looked up at the sky. The stars were sharp and endless above me. They had been there all along, steady and sure whether he noticed them or not. He smiled a real, full smile that reached into the deepest part of me. He was free. He did not need their inheritance to validate my worth, though he would use it wisely. He would pay off my debts, he would travel. He would start the non-profit he had dreamed about for years. The one they always said was foolish, because it would not make me rich. I would live a life that honored the kindness my grandmother had seen in me. They could keep their empty factories, their endless games of status and the approval. He had won the only thing that mattered. He had found myself. As he sat there, feeling the night wrap around me like a warm blanket, I made a promise to myself. He would never again measure my value by the standards of people who only loved the version of me they could control. He would never again sit at a table where my heart was not welcome. Family is not built by blood. It is built by love, by respect, by the choice to show up for one another without strings attached. He would find my family and the friends I loved, the students he mentored, the communities he chose. He would build a new table, and everyone who sat there would know they were enough, just as they were. I started the engine again, feeling lighter, stronger. The road stretched out before me wide and open. This was not the ending my family had intended for me. It was the beginning of the life I was always meant to live. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever felt like you didn't belong, if you have ever been told you were not enough, we want you to know something. Your worth has never depended on someone else's approval. It never will. You deserve love that does not come with conditions. You deserve to build a life that makes you proud, even if no more one else claps for you, especially then if the story touched you. If you saw a piece of your own journey in mine, please take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me your story too. I would love to read it, and if you wanna hear more real stories about resilience, healing, and finding your own way, make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's so much more I wanna share with you. Thank you again for being here. You are never alone.